Alright guys, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. Going to be going over some questions and kind of just giving you guys my overall thought of this week's tournament. It is a little bit different because one, it's a full tournament field event, so I'm really looking forward to that. And two, the weather conditions have kind of changed / confirmed our previous thoughts, so we'll kind of go over that. We're changing our player pool a little bit. Let's get into it. We'll start off with the high tier, of course. So I do think we can still play Dustin Johnson. The only worry is his win stats. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, it's supposed to get pretty bad. So Thursday is going to be a really good day. We don't really have to worry about the tee times on Thursday. Pretty much the whole day it should be good. And then on Sunday is kind of showing that the weather is going to be really good. So we'll have two really good weather days. The problem is Friday is supposed to be a horrible day of weather. It's supposed to be very windy. And then it's also supposed to kind of storm. They're projecting it to have some thunderstorms. It's supposed to start around 11, kind of going until 3. So my kind of overall strategy this week is obviously we use the stats that we're looking at. We use the guys that are in good current form, also have good course history. But now we also bring in another stat, and that's going to be the win stat. And so some of these other players on the top end, they're not the best win players. So just looking at Dustin has a negative win correlation. Francesco has a negative win correlation. Xander barely has a positive one. Bryson has a negative one. Kuchar has a negative one. Now, it's not going to make or break for me, but it's definitely, if you're at a 50-50 decision, that's going to matter a little bit. And so I do think, if you're, let's say you're trying to decide between Webb Simpson and Kevin Kisner, that was a decision I've kind of been tossing around. A lot of my GPP lineups is that I would go with Webb Simpson because he has a better win rating than does Kevin Kisner. And I'll kind of go over that as the video goes on. But I do think that someone like Webb Simpson, he's going to be a great play for us this week. He has that great course history. Yes, he did just miss a cut 2 weeks ago. But other than that, he's in really good current form. He's a really good stat fit. Like I said, he has that really good win rating. He has a positive correlation on events that are windy, and he does pretty well. So I don't mind that play. I do think someone like Tommy Fleetwood has now entered my player pool because of the wind conditions. He doesn't have that course history, and this kind of seems like a course where you need that course history, but he's a world-class player. He's really accurate driver as well. Really don't have to worry about that with Fleetwood, so I do think he'll come out and play well. So Kevin Kisner, he does have that negative win correlation that we talk about, but I don't think we have to worry about it with him. He has that great course history, as you guys can see there, and he's been some great recent form. 9 straight events where he's had a T30 or better. There's not many players on tour that can say that. So Kevin Kisner is still going to be a staple into my builds. I still think you can play him in cash as well. Webb Simpson and Kevin Kisner, they're going to be great cash options for you as well. Now, Jason Kokrak, I kind of include him in this as well. I'm not sure he's going to be a core play for me anymore just because he's a really bad win player, and he kind of has a bad draw with the tee times. I want to target players that have that early Thursday morning tee time. One, because the wind isn't really a factor up until like 10:30 or so, if that's projected. And also because there's a chance on Friday that the play just gets suspended, and then they pick up on Saturday. And so if you have that early Thursday start time, then you have that later Friday start time. So that means you might not even play on Friday. Whereas some players like Kokrak, who has that middle of the day start time on Thursday, then you're playing kind of early on Friday or kind of midday. You're going to be playing right when the storm is projected to be really bad. So you might start your play out and then have to come back later on the day. You're going to be warming up once or twice. I don't really like that. So once again, these are 50-50 decision makers. So if I'm trying to pick between, Kokrak or let's say Charles Howell, who's just up here, I would go with Charles Howell because he has that better tee time. Now, I still like Ian Poulter. We know Ian Poulter, he's a really good player, especially in bad weather. He's just in great current form, has great course history, as you guys can see there. I think, Ian Poulter and Charles Howell, those are going to be pretty much my starting points, and I'll be going from there. I just think that those two, they're in such great form. Charles Howell himself, I should have mentioned this. He's one of the better win players in the field in this tournament, so I like him as well. Speaking of a really good win player, we got Russell Knox here. Russell Knox, let me pull it up. Where is he at? So Russell Knox, pretty much he's checking all the boxes, including the win stat. He's in great current form. He has great course history. He's really good stat fits. I do wish he was a little bit better, like total driver and ball striker, but still he's kind of checking all those boxes. I do wish he had a little bit better proximity. He's 125th in the field, but still he's one of the better win players in the field as well. He's made 11 straight cuts, so I think Russell Knox is going to be a great option for us. And then I still do like Lucas Glover. Just at his price point, it's going to be hard to avoid Lucas Glover. Making 4 straight cuts here, pretty much a T30 finish or better. His recent form's been pretty good other than that one missed cut. But with Lucas Glover, if he makes the cut, you're pretty much locking in that top 20 finish. So I don't mind that. He is, he doesn't have the best win rating here. Let me see. It's a negative win rating, but it wasn't that much negative, so I don't mind that. Got a question coming in. Any interest for low-end tier? So I think you're speaking of like the 7.5K and below. And, I have a lot of interest. Graham McDowell, he is pretty much, I'm not locking him in, but for his price point, I really like him. He's going to be a strong option. I'm going to have a lot of Graham McDowell. He's a really good win player. He has good course history. 3 out of 4 cuts made here. He's in great recent form, and he's a pretty decent stat fit. He's made 8 straight cuts in a row. I think Graham McDowell is going to be a strong option for you. Emiliano Grillo, he's another good option. T16 here last year. Pretty decent recent form, but the key thing with him is he's also one of the better win players here. He's top 10 in total driving and ball striking. He's top 20 in driving accuracy. So, if it does get windy and he is playing in those bad conditions, I think we can roll with Grillo. Some other options down that low. I like Eddie Pepperell, especially now that it's supposed to get windy. He's one of the better win players in this. He's top 20 in the field for win players, so I don't mind him. Abraham Answer, I know he's a little bit above that 7.5K for the low tier, but it's kind of weird. Abraham Answer is now kind of just checking all the boxes, except for he doesn't have any course history. He's in pretty decent recent form, making 3 straight cuts. He's a really good win player, top 10 in the field. And then he's just checking all the boxes stat-wise. Top 60 in all the stats I'm looking at this week, so I do like that. If we want to go a little bit lower, Jonas Blitz was actually popping for me. I definitely would rather go with Graham McDowell. But if you're at that 7.1K, I don't mind him. T14 and a T44 in his last 2 starts here. He's not the best stat fit, but he's made 6 straight cuts. He's a decent win player, so I don't mind that. Yeah, in the chat. Abraham Answer. Yeah, he seems to be popping off the sheet. So I didn't have him at the start of the week. And that's kind of why you got to adjust it as the week goes on, because someone like him who you factor in the wind a little bit more, kind of enters the player pool. Some people that left the player pool are actually Adam Hadwin. He's not a good win player. He's one of the lowest negative ratings in the win, so I kind of had to give him the axe. Let me find some of those other players that I was kind of thinking about, and then they just left the player pool. So CT Pan, he's off the player pool now. On the high end, I kind of just went away. I do like Siwoo Kim. I want to mention Siwoo Kim. He is not a bad play this week. I'm not going to play him, but I've got a lot of questions about Siwoo Kim and my thoughts about him. He's just always a GPP play, and I kind of like to have the mindset of being able to predict which players are going to make the cut, and I just can't strongly predict that he's going to make the cut, but I do think he makes for a good GPP option. Got another question coming in. What sub 7K would you consider playing this week? So I mentioned this in the earlier video, the core play video. My favorite sub 7K play is Scott Piercy. I was just completely shocked that he was priced this low, especially now that we get the weather with the wind. He's a stronger option now, even more so. He is a top 10 win player in the field. And he had a T16 here last year. He's one of the better stat fits in the field. He, other than his putting, he's top 50 in all the stats that I'm looking at this week. And he's been in pretty decent, good current form. He does have a couple of missed cuts in there, but he's just a little bit too cheap. I think he could be priced $1,000 more than he is. Another option that I like as well, Joel Diamond. He's made 4 straight cuts. He doesn't have that course history that we look for, but he's 19th in driving accuracy. He's top 30 in both total driving and ball striking. So if his putter can come around, I really think he could perform well at this course. He is a good win player as well. He was the top rated win player in the field, actually. So And I do believe that Joel Diamond actually has that good tee time draw that we were looking for this week, so I don't mind him. The last one that I want to touch on that's below 7K that I think we can strongly play now is actually Nick Taylor. He's made 3 out of 4 cuts here at this course. He's been playing some good golf, made 6 straight cuts. Now, he's not the best stat fit, but once again, we're looking at that win stat. He's top 10 in the win, so I do like that as well. Is there any part of the course that's going to be like tough to predict? Obviously, the ones that are a little bit more tree lined, they don't get as much wind, but you can't really predict which way the wind's going to be coming in, so that's how that goes. Top end fades. So, I'm not going to be touching Jordan Spieth. I think we can just avoid Jordan Spieth. It was really shocking that he was able to play as poorly as he did the first day and kind of come back. So that was really surprising. I do want to see it one more time with Jordan Spieth. Patrick Cantlay, he doesn't make for a bad option. I just think if I'm going to be paying, he's kind of at a weird, him and Jordan Spieth are both at a weird price. I'd rather just pay up for Matt Kuchar, and I'd rather just pay down for like Kevin Kisner or Webb Simpson than those two. I'm not going to be playing Bryson DeChambeau. I don't know. That he has that negative wind correlation, and I think with him, I'd rather just pay up for Xander. I'd rather just pay up for Dustin. I'm not playing Francesco Molinari either. He has one of the worst win ratings in the field as well, so if you want to play those guys, you can. Obviously they're priced up that much for a reason, but I'm just going to be sticking away from them, especially in GPPs and cash. Roger Sloan, not playing him. He did not pop for me at all, so can't go with him. Yeah, Jonas Blitz, that was kind of a play that's gaining edge for me this week more as it goes on. I keep looking at him, keeps popping for me. So Rory Sabatini, he's not too bad. I don't like him as much now with this win, but he should be fine. He's priced down that low. He's made, he's in good current form, making all those cuts in a row, so I don't mind him. Ryan Armour. So Ryan Armour, let me pull him up because at the start of the week, I really liked him as a value option for me. And as the week went on, let me pull it up. I think he had a bad win rating, so that kind of worried me. So yeah, he does have a bad win rating, and he's priced only $100 more than Scott Piercy. I have a lot more confidence that Scott Piercy is going to make the cut than Ryan Armour. But if you need to fit someone in there that low, he's not a horrible option. He isn't, decent. He's a good stat fit, that's for sure. He's made 2 cuts in a row. He had a T55 finisher last year. Not going to be that bad of an option, but like I said, rather just pay up for Scott Piercy. Rather pay up for Joel Diamond if I can get there as well. So that's kind of where I sit with those ones. So I want to get into the FanDuel and Yahoo plays as well here real quick. Keep the questions coming if you have them. I'll keep answering them. Let's get into the FanDuel picks. All right, so the FanDuel picks, these are kind of just players that are a little bit mispriced on FanDuel as well. I do think Lucas Glover is just a little bit mispriced there. Now, someone that I haven't touched on yet is Ryan Moore. So Ryan Moore on, actually the FanDuel and Yahoo ones are kind of similar. So Ryan Moore, I think he's just mispriced. He gets a huge boost with this wind, and I do like his start time too on Thursday. So T16 here last year, 7th in driving accuracy. He's a really good putter, top 34 in putting. He's top 60 in both total driving and ball striking. He's 27th in proximity, and he's a top 10 win player in this field. So, Ryan Moore, not a horrible option. Like I said, I'd rather play him on FanDuel and Yahoo. I do think Scott Piercy is too cheap on FanDuel. And then Adam Schenk on FanDuel as well. Let me pull up his stats real quick. So I didn't like his pricing on DraftKings. I think he was kind of priced up a little bit too much. He had been an easy value play like the last 3 weeks, and now Schenk is kind of just an easier play now for us. He's a pretty decent win player. He's top 20 in the field in the wind. He's a good stat fit. The only problem is he doesn't have that course history, and so that's kind of why I was surprised that he was above 7K, but he's a good stat fit. He's been making cuts this year, so he's not going to be a horrible option on FanDuel. And then obviously Graham McDowell, not a bad option. Aaron Baddeley, if he's popping for you, you can play him. I kind of just, when you're trimming down your player pool, there's, you got to trim it down to at least 20 or so. He just didn't make that final cut. He was one of the people that originally I liked. He's made 3 out of 4 cuts here. Not a horrible option, but just as the week went on, I kind of just said, no, that's okay. And he's just, let's look at his win rating. So, yeah, he doesn't have a positive win rating either, so we don't like that, but If I had to say, I probably would have him projected to make the cut. But like I said, I just X'd him off when I was doing my preliminary research. So if you want to play him, you can. But I'm just not going that route. Now let's get into the Yahoo plays. All right, so let's get into the Yahoo plays, and I'll touch on the last two questions that came in about Fitzpatrick and then the 8K range on DraftKings. So Yahoo, it's actually the same thing. These guys are mispriced on Yahoo and FanDuel. I think they're Lucas Glover is obviously mispriced on DraftKings, and so is Scott Piercy, and so is Graham McDowell. I think Ryan Moore is kind of priced right on DraftKings, but the thing that I like on Yahoo here is Shank. He doesn't have that course history, but he's the minimum price. And every week on Yahoo, there's someone that's minimum priced on Yahoo that shouldn't be. This week, that's Shank, so you can definitely roll with him. Scott Piercy is kind of priced up at that 29 mark, but with the other players in that range, he was priced a little bit too low. And then obviously, Scott Piercy shouldn't be priced higher than Graham McDowell. That's kind of an easier option. If I was making GPP lineups on Yahoo, I think I would start with McDowell and Shank and then go from there. Yahoo actually makes it a little bit harder to do load up on studs, where on DraftKings this week, it's kind of easier. I'll touch on that 8K lineup spot there. So on DraftKings, it's a lot easier this week to build from that 8K range because, Jason Kokrak, like I said, I'm not going with him as much, but I think Charles Howell, Ian Poulter, they're not bad options. I do like Sanjay M. I do wish he had some course history, but he's not a horrible option. Benny Ann, he's not a horrible option. And then also you have Ryan Moore there. So those four, really not bad options. Mark Leishman, he's not a bad win player as well. I don't like that play as much, but Ryan Moore, Benny Ann, Ian Poulter, Charles Howell, not bad options in that 8K range. So you can really build a pretty decent lineup from that 8K range. Ryan Moore, he's more of a GPP play. I don't have that trust in Ryan Moore for cash, but he could really pop, the T16 last year. And then Benny Ann, T7 last year. He's made 19 straight PGA Tour cuts, 10 out of 11 cuts on the Euro Tour and PGA Tour. So obviously he's in good current form. Stuck between Glover and Knox. So I've had that problem before. Is that a cash or is that a GPP lineup? Because if we're rolling with, I think for cash, you got to go with Glover. But for GPP, I would say build another lineup, but I'd actually rather go with Knox because I think that Glover is going to be a little bit higher priced. But I like Glover a lot. I have a better confidence rating in Glover this week than I do Russell Knox, just because Russell Knox is not a better stat fit than Lucas Glover, so that's why I had to go that route. All right, I got another question coming in. I'll touch on the Patreon page here. So 11 and 10K range is a fade. Just built. Yeah, I kind of agree there, especially with the weather coming in with those guys not being as good of weather players now. Maybe Matt Kuchar, not a horrible option, but I do think it's kind of, you pay up for DJ if that's kind of how your build tells you to do it, or you go with Matt Kuchar. So I don't mind that as well. I want to touch on the Patreon page, so I just want to bring this to attention because it's only $5 a month. You look at the other people that give DFS advice, it's an insane amount. It's like $100 per month. It's various different prices across the industry, but I'm giving you guys the DK Cash lineup. It's cash 11 out of 14 weeks, so I do like that. I'm giving you guys the player pool, kind of breaking it down, how I feel fit for that week. And then I'm going to give you guys the top 20 plays or so that week. Sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's top 25 plays. Kind of depends on the field. Then I give some GPP lineups. So this week I gave a lot of wind lineups. Really kind of stacked the early tee times with that. So there's a really good lineup that I like in there with the early tee times. All right, so that's all I have for you guys. If you have any more questions, bring those in real quick. If not, I'm going to be logging off here in a second. So let's take some questions. I'm going to a Bucks game tonight. Really looking forward to that. So let's hope they continue to dominate the Pistons. It'll be a fun one. Oh, and one little quick strategy that I want to touch on actually. So because I actually really like the early tee times, I think there's kind of the edge that we can gain, especially on Thursday with the showdown slate. So I don't know if you guys play that at all, but you can really stack that showdown slate with those early tee times. I think that's going to be a nice edge to gain. And then kind of going forward with the showdown slates. So sometimes a player just doesn't have it going one day. And then those are the players I would like to play on the second round. So someone like Hideki Matsuyama last week, he didn't have a good first round. He kind of struggled. I played him in that second round. I think it was Charles Howell and Webb Simpson. Those were guys that were popping for me last week. They didn't have a really good first round, and then they did the second round. I think I played Ian Poulter in that. That line, it finished like top 100. That's a strategy that I like to use each and every week with the showdown slate. It's kind of those players that were popping for us, checking all the boxes. That's who you play in those showdown slates. All right, that's all I have for you guys. Thanks for watching, and as always, just keep cashing.